Thank you so much for coming along. You've all got impeccable taste because you've decided to come to our session rather than listen to some boring commissioners, and you've made a very, very wise decision. I'm Gideon Joseph, and this is Revolutionise the World of Television with Skype TX. The aim of today is really to look at the way in which Skype, but also other technologies, are affecting production and the kinds of television that hopefully some of you people make in the audience. We're going to predominantly look at non-scripted television today and the way in which, through case studies, Skype and, as I say, some of these other competitor technologies are affecting everything from pre-production, production, and also the way in which audience interaction occurs. I think we'll open the floor to questions as we go along. We certainly want to hear whether you think this is a good trend, part of a historical continuum where technologies have always affected production, and we'll certainly try and make it as interactive and fun as possible. We are joined by an extremely talented cast of contributors, some of whom I hope will be joining us from America very shortly. Let me quickly spin through everyone. Starting on the far corner, Matthew Jordan, who is a Senior Technical Manager from Skype and is joining us. Dan, who is the Digital Creative Director at Maverick. Kat Hebden, who is the Digital Creative Director, I think, at Fremantle, and Natalka Znak, who is the Chief Creative Officer of Znak & Jones, which is a new startup indie based in London and LA. We're going to have a little look at some tape to begin with, because it's always good to start with a nice sizzle, and this is some work that Skype has done over the last couple of years. Okay, fine. We'll come to it in a second. We're going to talk in a second to Julian March, who also is from Seattle and hopefully is actually going to join us via Skype live. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to, whether the audio is going to be fixed on this shortly. If it isn't, we'll start with Julian and get the debate. Okay. Let's hope technology is working now, because we're going to talk to Julian March, who is going to start off the conversation. And he is the Vice President of Digital and Innovation at NBC News. And NBC has been using Skype in their news gathering for some time, and we're going to look at the ways in which Julian has been either benefiting from it, and we're hoping he's in Seattle. Julian, are you there?
Hi there, guys.
Oh, we've still got no audio.
I am indeed sleepless in Seattle, but hey,
oh, okay, we're going to have to see if there's any audio. Is someone going to try and fix it?
Can you hear me?
Okay, fine. Well, I'm going to... Matt, why don't you...
One moment there, Julian. You look great.
Yeah.
And he sounds great in my ear, folks. It's very compelling content.
Yeah. Matt, why don't you give us a tiny little bit of history of how Skype got into the television industry and where you began your journey, and then when Julian gets up with some audio, we can help.
Certainly. Well, we were very blessed at Skype to enter into a partnership in the early days with this person you may have heard of, Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah was interested in using Skype as a communications method to speak to her audience and have her audience from wherever in the world they found themselves be able to be brought into the studio. And over a period of a relationship of over 3 years, we had 70 different integrations on the Oprah Winfrey Show, including one that was a full hour-long special of Where in the Skype Are You? And Oprah had Skype sessions with the North Pole, the South Pole, a submarine, a Virgin America flight, as well as some classrooms. And, you know, Oprah was so innovative that she actually had group video calling via Skype before Skype even offered it as a solution. And she was able to do this because she had a great bit of technical team and the resources to build out that virtual studio for Skype. And we took those key learnings from Oprah and were able to mirror those successes around the globe for both editorial content as well as for entertainment. And working alongside partners that you see on the panel here today that have some great examples of using Skype technology, we now have a solution that we're showcasing at the main lobby. So after this session, please feel free to stop by if you want to hear more about it.
I know that we're still struggling to get some audio, which is obviously going to be slightly problematic as we go along. But Dan, we are going to come to you if we can get Julian back. But give us your kind of first initial glimpse of using Skype. What was the sort of insight in your development process that suddenly prompted you to go, I want to use a technology which is cheap, doesn't always work, as we can see. What was that moment of lunacy?
So the genesis for us came from in 2010. We'd been doing Embarrassing Bodies as a non-live show for a few years, and we have been doing various innovations around it across different platforms. At the same time, because the show had actually, even online, just on channel4.com, had rated really, really well and done really well, Channel 4 took the plunge and said, we want to put this at 9 p.m. In sort of a features slot, but we really need to be able to speak to the people, the contributors, and at that point we investigated what was the best solution to do that, and messed around with Skype on it.
Got it. I'm told that we have sound, which means we can actually go back and watch the sizzle. Should we have another go at watching it, and then we'll come to Julian in Seattle? So, as you can see, Skype has been doing a fair amount in the TV space for a while. We're going to talk to Julian March again in a second. I want to show now a couple of the clips that NBC sent us of how they've been using Skype in live reporting. Julian, I hope you can hear us now and we can hear you. We're hopefully going to see you in Seattle. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Oh, and you're
sleepless in Seattle.
You are sleepless in Seattle. Welcome. Julian, just tell us a little bit about how these kinds of technologies like Skype and other VoIP providers are changing the work that you're doing. And clearly at the moment there's an enormous amount of live breaking news. Give us a sort of oversight of what you've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, okay, so I think we are more than ever living in a video democracy where lenses are more proliferated than ever, and now the connectivity to those lenses is more, kind of live than ever, and also news is all about immediacy and getting to the story. And so these kind of technologies, and there are plenty of them, Skype, Ustream, Livestream, we've got our own one which we've just launched, actually just enable us to get to see more cameras and to get more eyes effectively on the ground wherever, whether that be in a news gathering situation like Ferguson we had last week, the protests in Missouri over the shot teenager, or as you saw, just in a kind of an engagement kind of context, just connecting more deeply with our viewers.
I want to show the VT of StringWire, and perhaps off the back of the clip you could explain what it's doing and what you think the capability is, because it's pretty revolutionary if the technology works. Jules, can you explain what StringWire is doing there? I know it's a short clip, but just the kind of the scale of the potential of what you're seeing from a news reporting point of view.
Sure. So we just launched this service. Now, what you saw in the clip there was actually just the beginning, where we can show that we can stream live video from mobile. You're probably thinking, so what? There are plenty of other perfectly good applications which do that. What StringWire does is it enables us and other users to crowdsource live streaming video from mobile, and then to create a virtual kind of control room or gallery to actually be able to string together various live streams from different sources into a contiguous live stream, kind of like a multi-camera shoot. And so you can imagine what those implications can be, not only for news gathering, but for live events like concerts or whatever. But we're also excited about it for communities. So you can tell American. It could be like the Little League, kind of fan TV channel, for parents to, show off their, little ones playing baseball at the weekend, or it could be for local politics to enable, council meetings to be streamed through a community. It's that kind of stuff.
No, that's fascinating. Julian, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's early with you, and thank you for sharing that technology. What I want to do is come to you, Dan, in a second to discuss about the way in which other kinds of interactivity between the audience and broadcasters has occurred. And in a way, TV has a long history of interactivity. We have phone-ins, we've had postcards, we've had sort of all emails and so forth. And really, I suppose some of these technologies is just a sort of extension. Dan, how on earth did you convince Channel 4 to put this on air? I'm sort of still look back at it and think this is just bonkers, because there's still a natural conservatism against low-cost technologies like Skype.
Yeah, and I think I would give massive credit to Channel 4, actually, and especially in the, sort of looking at things like the McTaggart stuff. Doing something like Life in the Clinic, I think, is absolutely what Channel 4 stands for and is about. No other broadcaster would take that sort of risk. And it was an absolutely massive risk at the time. And from our point of view, when I was talking about the genesis of it, that we did the online show and opened up the editorial of the show to the users, and this was sort of pre-Twitter, so we built our own sort of mini social platform around the show. The whole point of that was democratizing the show and sort of saying we might not be the best at choosing all the editorial that goes in the show. We think we know the sort of cases that you want to show, but actually what have you guys got that you want to bring to us? And what showed in the clip there, once we made it into a Channel 4 TV show, the most important thing for us was you could be watching the show at 9 p.m. or 9:05, and we say we've got Britain's leading breast specialist in the show. If you've got an unusual problem, you're struggling with something, you can be on the show tonight. And we created a process that allowed them within about 25 minutes, realistically, to be on the show. So in the second half of the show, basically.
Matt, briefly, what were the challenges in the early days of using Skype? And we'll come on to what technology can do now, but just sort of quickly give us a run through of some of the things that were causing Dan to have sleepless nights.
Well, certainly the broadband access is integral to the performance of Skype. Even with the beauty and the wonder that is Skype, without the internet there to pass that call along, you're not going to be successful. So having a unfettered internet connection was very important. I think that Dan and team also found the benefit of adding some additional hardware whenever possible so that we could improve the overall audio and video quality. So it could be as simple as downloading the latest and greatest Skype, asking, during this 20-minute vetting period, download the latest and greatest Skype, set your shot. As you saw, the producers have a nice view of what the shot will be. And if at all possible, having that HD USB webcam or the kit there at the home really helps when the call comes into studio look and sound great. And then we had a whole set of challenges that we've worked through over the years and have gotten to where we have studio grade kit, so that we know that Embarrassing Bodies is rock solid. It's going to have the ability to send and receive HD quality video to any Skype user anywhere in the world. And that allows the producers and the technical team to just focus on the far end and making sure that they're just getting that far end optimized, because they know that their own kit in studio is optimized already.
I want to bring in Kat, because I want to talk a little bit wider about entertainment. And obviously, Kat, you work on the X Factor. In many ways, the X Factor pioneered the video call-in, which again seems extremely simple as a concept to move away from audio to video call-ins. I'm going to show a clip of it before, and then I suppose come back to you with, again, what were the challenges that you faced? Let's have a quick look at how the X Factor's used. I mean, so Kat, what were some of the sort of obstacles that you faced? I know that originally, there were some problems with calls coming in. Give us an overview of how you've experienced.
I think it's exactly what you're talking about with the broadband. I think we're all at the mercy of broadband around the studios. We've had the same problems in all studios with internet connection, so it works absolutely fine in the rehearsal. Everyone's lined up, but of course everyone's on that bandwidth. We're uploading a huge amount of video. Everyone's on that wireless network in the studio when we're actually going live, and the risk is that someone's talking to Simon Cowell and then they cut out.
And Natalka, do you, in a way, when you did I'm a Celebrity and the concept of mass voting became an issue, are these sort of just classic trends within television where you have to hold a commissioner's hand and make them realise that actually, if it buggers up, it's not the end of the world? Or are these things that that kind of give you sleepless nights and you actually are nervous about pushing as part of your sort of formats to them? Because I still get the sense there's this natural reticence to push technological innovation within commissioners, or do you think that's unfair?
Well, I think what's interesting, and certainly I'm predominantly based in America, and people seem to be obsessed with interactivity and commissioners and pushing it and talking about it, but nobody really knows what they're actually talking about or asking for. And I sit in, you can't pitch anything now that doesn't have an interactive element to it, and even with live shows, everyone wants an interactive element, but they don't know what it is. And to me, that's what's interesting. And a lot of the time, I don't know what it is, but we all know that when the public get to, you know, shows like X Factor, shows like this that are live, when the public really can phone in, can be on the TV in half an hour's time, that engagement is incredible. That's what viewers really, really want. And I think, you know, we're working with you guys now to, you know, bring more of that on board. I think for me, what's been interesting is the quality issue is becoming less of an issue.
Yeah, and I'm interested that American networks, and we'll come and show some clips in the next section, are more aggressive at using Skype and other forms, whether it's Hangouts or so forth, and they don't seem to care about the quality as much as a Channel 4 commissioner, I hope there's no one in the room, cares about whether the call drops out. They're like, you know, in America they appear to be, well, we don't care, we're used to it. It's a different language of kind of the quality of the picture that you're seeing. Do you have...
Yeah, it's how, what's really nice about Skype is how people connect at home. So using that's really natural. So everyone at home understands, I'm sure everyone in this room's heard of Skype, if not used it. So it's how people understand that technology. So using that in a show, they're okay with the quality, they're okay with the fact that it might cut out, and the value of the engagement sort of overrides that.
And then, do you think there's a distinction between interactivity and play along? Because one of the things when we were even having a conversation about this session was the interchangeability by some of the commissioners we were talking to about they would refer to Skype as second screen. And I think as Natalia said, part of it is just a sort of confusion. And fundamentally it also goes back to human insight. Do people like participating in a very simple way with these shows? Or do they actually like engaging very deeply by playing along? I mean, do you have a view on distinguishing between these different human motivations?
Yeah, I mean, I treat them completely differently, really. The sort of play along is absolutely a mass participation thing. And if we look at when we did Live from the Clinic, it's about 10 Skypers get through on any one show. So that's completely different to actually, we've probably had 1 million people playing along, as it were, by taking various different tests that we've done on the show. So taking autism, you know, find out where you are on the autism spectrum. Mass engagement versus speaking to people almost one-to-one, so treat them really, really differently. But even that sort of 10 people we got through the show, you can see sort of, as we go to a Skype call here, it's like, oh, I hope we can hear you, and that sort of thing. In a live show, watched by maybe 2 million for us, 10 million for you guys, it's fucking terrifying. Yeah. Every single time you go for it, you're still a bit nervous about it. But quality-wise, actually, picture, I think, generally looks great. When we started on Live from the Clinic 2011, a lot of the time it looked pretty bad, and that was really problematic for someone showing a medical condition. Whereas, you know, if they're just having the chat, it's less of an issue. Now I think HD calls look like you've got a mini OB out there. It almost looks too good sometimes.
Well,
so people don't
I'd be interested to see if people think it is too good, because we're going to come on to a way of mitigating the risk, I suppose, has been to create individual strands within programmes. So those show you a couple of the ways in which strands have been created to sort of create new, I suppose, low-cost formats within particular non-scripted shows. We should have 2 people joining us via Skype. There they are. We have Vivi Ziegler, who is the president of Shine 360, who is joining us from LA, and we also have Anna Dunkley, who is a producer on Saturday Night Takeaway. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can both hear us, and as Dan says, that's always a moment of trepidation. Anna, what you showed us there could easily have been an old-fashioned OB trick from a Noel Edmonds show. Explain the kind of context of how you got ITV to buy into using a webcam with one of their most important properties, and was it a scary ride?
It was pretty scary, yes. You know, I think this was the first time I think that Skype had been used to do almost a hidden camera hit in the home. But obviously the reason that the way that we got ITV to buy into it was because Takeaway, at its very heart, the most important thing is making the audience feel as involved as possible on every level, whether that be in the studio, whether it be on a hidden camera hit, or with a supercomputer, or with an OB. And like you say, you know, the ability to be able to use Skype to do several, technically it's like doing a mini OB, but without having to spend an absolute fortune on it. So the brilliant thing about it like you say in reference to Noel's house party, was we wanted to find a way to go into people's homes and surprise them whilst they're sat at home and almost reward them for staying in on a Saturday night and watching our show. And Skype was a brilliant way to do that, because not only was it very cost effective, but also to be able to use it in a hidden camera setup. It's much more discreet and easy to conceal within someone's house than having to, try and hide a OB van around the corner. Never easy to conceal.
Vivi, good morning. Thank you for joining us. I suppose, I mean, you wear obviously a kind of production hat, but also a commercial hat. Give us some context as to how sort of technology brands like Skype, but also others, and feel free to mention rivals' names, how are they working with you on big global franchises like obviously MasterChef? Because I'm interested, given your past, to see how they differentiate in terms of their comparison to someone like a Pepsi, for example.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think what you're asking is really, how do we choose organically? And I think that's really the differentiator. And several of the other panelists have said the same thing. It's a matter of what's the right technology to tell your story, to bring a connection that you couldn't make elsewhere or in another way. So you choosing the right platform, the right application at the right time for the right moment creatively or from information gathering. So I think that's the big difference. We have used a lot of different technology in all of our shows, whether it's, you know, a social media type chat, whether it's Google Hangouts with live cooking demonstrations for MasterChef. We've done quite a bit of different things. In this instance, I think our desire, we had children. We had 8 to 13-year-olds, as you know, Gideon. And, you know, we put them in this pressure-filled room to prove that they were as good as the adults and to become our first ever MasterChef Junior. And I think the way we used it was so sort of organic to how the kids thought, right? They were in a tight spot. They just lifted the box, you know, their first mystery box, and they had a chance to call someone that they knew could help them, whether that was a parent, whether that was a relative or a friend. So I think in that sense, it sort of had a creative connection. It had a comforting connection for the kids to be able to reach out to someone that they knew. And it advanced the storytelling in the sense that you learned a little bit more about each of these contestants. You had a chance to see them in an environment, connecting with someone else. So you were more invested, more rooted in their success of as they process. So for us, that made sense. Making a Skype call made sense to us at the same time. I was also thinking about what Matt was saying a little bit earlier and others about the broadband. Matt was there on set with us and helped us make sure everything ran perfectly. But you know, everybody's absolutely right. We had to make sure that we had enough bandwidth, so we made sure that was opened up. And we were also very careful not to tempt fate. This is, we have a high standard in terms of the competition and keeping the integrity of that. So because of that, we only allowed 4 simultaneous calls as opposed to 12. We had 12 contestants at that time, partly so that we could ensure they were perfect, but also so that we could train all of our MasterChef Junior cameras on those phone calls to make sure we're picking up. Because as you saw, the kids were immediately, you know, they didn't need any encouragement to pick up those tablets, let me tell you. So they were like, oh, cool, games. Oh, we're going to make a call. Okay. So they really enjoyed that process, and it was very comfortable.
I just want to ask you quickly both sort of final questions to you, which is the degree to which, again, and Vivi, you can be quite honest about this from a sort of commercial point of view, which is, are brands like Skype and Hangouts causing challenges for both indies and also broadcasters around how you structure, you know, commercial partnerships with them? Because it strikes me that this is a kind of new challenge for broadcasters, which they haven't quite got their head around. And Anna, then I'll just quickly get sort of from you, I suppose, do you still feel the commissioners need convincing over the quality, or do you feel now you've done it once that you kind of have got over that hurdle? So Vivi, go first. Yeah, please.
So I think it comes back down to, is this a proper use? If you are cramming something in that isn't a fit, that sticks out like a sore thumb, it will be bad for your television show. You shouldn't do it creatively. It will be bad for your network partner. We always work with our network partner in what makes sense. So we would never surprise them with that, for example. But in storytelling, if it's going to be organic and further the story, we have found that they will be all for it.
Got it. Anna, very quickly, and then we're going to come on to the next section. How were the commissioners with it?
Thrilled. I think the ability to be able to reach out to homes all over the country, you know, any concerns that we had were proved wrong. I think I think we'll be using it a lot in the future.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both for joining us. Thank you, Vivi, for getting up so early. I want to move on to the concept of sort of fan engagement and the idea of kind of getting fans and super fans to engage with programmes. I'm going to show a clip, Kat, of a Fremantle YouTube channel that you guys run. Kat, I mean, explain to us how you use Skype, but also, I mean, I suppose a bigger question, and Tal could pick up, is it actually this technology better suited to the digital environment, really, than sort of linear television?
Well, so first question first. It's a channel for the fans, by the fans, and so that content is absolutely important to creating the content. They're part of the content, so using Skype in that way is just so organic and so natural. Your second question, I think for us on our digital platforms, it's just the immediacy that we have. It's much quicker. When we're going to live broadcast, the approval process, the technology, the video is slightly slower because we just rip the content from Skype and then we re-edit it and put it out straight away. And I think, sort of to some of the points Julian makes, it's perfect for kind of news output. So this is football content, it's got to go out quickly. That's the most important thing. So it works perfectly on that platform in that way.
And how do you see sort of fan engagement? Because you're quite excited by fan chats or fan parties.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, we have a deal in America with a company called Phonology Social, and they do what they call Twitter parties around big events, where celebrities engage via Twitter with their fans, and it's very much used to drive viewers to the show and also to products that they're sponsoring. We're going to set up a studio with Skype, so we can now do this on Skype. And my aim, this is all second screen, and my aim is to turn that into first screen. There's a lot of the successful shows on cable now in the US have fan shows afterwards. Skype is used in
Talking Dead
that comes after The Walking Dead. So my aim is to, I guess, doing what you're doing on digital, but to get it onto the mainstream channels. But it's still very much the fan shows, and it's still very much that immediacy and being able to connect with, you know, the stars who have been on the shows.
And do you think the quality? I mean, again, do you think there's an audience for that? I mean, I know there is online, but is your hunch there's an audience for that on television?
I think if what you're giving them is their ability to connect with, you know, if they're a super fan and they get to talk to, on the Talking Dead, they get to talk to what's called Andrew Lincoln or whatever, isn't it?
And be on the show,
and
be part of the show.
And I do think, because, you know, I'm surprised that the quality is not an issue, and it isn't an issue in any of the shows, and the quality is getting better. But I think you forgive. What's interesting as well about America is everything is so overproduced and beautiful, and most of the reality shows are not real, they're made up, and everybody knows that there's a move away from that now because the audience are not that stupid. And sometimes, when it looks like that, you believe it more, is the truth of it.
I find the biggest issue is the sound rather than... Actually, the sound is the really easy thing to overlook, but it takes a really long time to get that right, because you sort of have to remember Skype wasn't built originally as a transmission platform. You know, there's a one-to-one calling thing, and all the sort of sounds you get in the studio that then cut out the microphone at the other end, and presenters naturally saying, okay, immediately cuts off the contributors' microphones, right? And you really have to retrain presenters and retrain the way you think about it, and sometimes little sound lags and that sort of thing. Actually, if you can hear it perfectly, you forgive a lot of the visual quality because you just sort of expect it.
The other area that I think would just be great to get your insight into is the film industry has pioneered casting through Skype and pre-production. I mean, again, you know, what are the changes that... Because, again, I think this is something that's sort of undersold, that producers could be actually cutting sizzles more cheaply? I mean, you know, what's going on there?
Again, when I first went to America, everything's pitched on a sizzle, and everything, and all the sizzles I used to make were beautiful. It's gone totally the other way now. Because so much of the, you know, America's a very big country, you can't fly everywhere, it would be expensive. Most of my sizzles and pitch tapes are done on Skype now, and the buyers seem to really like it because they feel like they're getting in at the very early stage. As long as you've got good characters, and a lot of the stuff is character-based, you know, we got a request to, you know, a channel wanted some show about a group of fat friends, basically, and my casting person Skyped, and we had a tape from this group of women in Missouri or somewhere, like within 7 days. So the speed and the ability to get that to the buyers now, I mean, we've even pitched by Skype because we had a producer in America and we were here. So for me, it's really, really interesting. And obviously, I've before now been in big companies, ITV and Zodiac, they've got loads of money. It's my own company now and I haven't got any money. So it's just, all of a sudden now, these things are incredibly important.
Yeah. I want to move on to almost the other side of call-ins and strands and going to the whole hog of game shows and other things built around a technology. And again, we can have a little chat about why certain shows like you know, the Channel 4 show recently, Sing While You're Winning, and the ITV show these ITV shows haven't quite taken off. Let's have a quick look at a game show that also didn't take off, which was built around Skype, but you'll see the ambition and get the idea of it. I mean, how many game shows have been pitched in the last 2 years where they go, and we're going to join by everyone across Britain with 500 people on Skype. Have you pitched something similar like that? And why hasn't it kind of gone anywhere yet, the idea of a pure technology-based format? Is it fear? And Matt can probably tell us how many nights of sleep he lost from helping Telepictures try and get it off the ground. What's going on? Because we're seeing these formats being pitched all the time, but they're not working.
Yeah, I think for me there's two elements. One is actually the idea, first and foremost, ignoring the technology has got to be amazing still, and game shows I think are really hard to get away. And then actually the entertainment I think requires almost like a higher level of expectation of that quality. I think it's completely different if it's on Anton Beck and the calling in, surprising people, and it feels completely perfect for that. But actually, on something like Embarrassing Bodies as a feature show, we were okay that we were giving quite a lot of airtime to Skype because it felt natural. If you're giving that much airtime in a prime time entertainment slot, it's got to feel like it works perfectly. And so there's just some stuff around the tech. Like I sort of get why some commissioners are a bit nervous around it at the moment. But I think what you get from it is people behave completely differently in their homes to how they behave in a studio under studio lights and stuff.
And Matt, just give us a sense of what Skype TX is doing that is potentially going to bridge this gap.
Certainly. So historically, before we came up with Skype TX, which is an appliance, it's software, it's hardware, it's purpose-built for broadcast and media integrations with Skype. Production companies would be using the same off-the-shelf Skype client that you download to your Mac or PC to talk to Gran on the weekend. And to have a show whose format required 500 people on Skype, you would have to have at least 500 PCs and then all the ancillary kit as well, scan converters and maybe some media converters in the mix to make this all work in the highest quality. Skype TX, this new appliance, is purpose-built for broadcast and media integrations, and we have a demonstration of the TED Talks that we'll show a little bit later in the session here today, where we had over 50, and just like Dan has over 30 simultaneous Skype callers, we're able to increase the number of Skype users without increasing the footprint that Skype requires from a technology perspective so exponentially as we had before.
I know you'll be able to show TX out in the workshop. We're going to show you something very scary, which, as Matt said, we did with TED. And again, I think it's interesting from a formats innovation point of view. So, Natalka, you thought that 10 People in the Jungle would make good telly, and building a restaurant in the middle of Brick Lane would be good telly. I mean, when you see the potential there, does it inspire you to think, OK, actually, let's get people doing stuff from all around the world on a one-off event? Do you think that, you know, you can't see something that's an hour long? What kind of inspires you? Because I think what we want to look at towards the end is, where do you see yourself and in terms of using technology being in a year's time? You obviously told a good anecdote to me about the Ibiza Uncovered experience. Can you kind of give us a sense of what's going through your head?
My experience in just over the years of creating and making shows is, I mean, you do look at that, and that is really interesting and inspirational, but you're always having ideas. And for me, the innovation, you know, with Ibiza Uncovered is a good example, because we all wanted to go to Ibiza to make a show, and Sky said fine, and we were all young at that time, and it was clearly a brilliant idea. Sky didn't have enough money, so we said, well, we're still going. And just at that time, there's small handheld cameras, and we went and shot it ourselves, which, you know, but it was one of the first times. And everyone was like, what a brilliant, innovative idea. It totally made the perspective of the show different, but it wasn't a brilliant idea. We just didn't have the money for proper cameras. And my experience all the time is, like, you've got an idea, for budgetary reasons. I mean, a lot of the reason I'm using Skype now is for budgetary reasons. If I was still in a big company, I wouldn't need to use Skype, but I need to because I haven't got the money. And now suddenly I'm using it. You just suddenly think, oh, well, I could maybe make this show. I mean, we're talking about a chat show. You suddenly think, well, maybe I could make shows that I wanted to make where there isn't the budget. And I just think, I always think it's a mistake to go and think, oh, there's an amazing piece of technology, let's create a show around it, because it's the wrong way often, and that's when things... And maybe that's why that quiz didn't work, because it's kind of... You've got to have the idea, and then I find that suddenly you find a piece of equipment that makes you think, oh, I could do it in a slightly different way than I thought I could do it, or maybe it's possible. I don't know if that's your guys.
No, you guys... I mean, do you think there's a sense in which the technology is leading the idea a bit at the moment, and people are getting seduced by it?
No, I think the idea is always the king, and that's why they won't get commissioned. But I think it's always making sure that the technology you use is appropriate to your audience and then appropriate to the show, and it adds something to the show. You're not building an idea around technology; you're really adding something to it.
I don't want to give people the impression that using Skype within a prime-time show is a cheap thing to do. That, you know, using Skype itself might be free, but actually building the infrastructure around it to make it work really well is a lot more expensive than bringing someone into the studio to do something. So,
audience, is anyone who's got a question for the panel or generally about Skype? Anyone, or just using technologies? So I think there is a mic for you.
Thank you. Hello. I'm Matt from Google. What kind of support does Skype offer program makers in the UK?
That's a good question. Well, behind you is a gentleman from Skype who might want a mic from Skype, who runs the broadcast. I mean, you can step in terms of...
We've actually scaled our team quite extensively over the past couple of years. We started off with having myself and a few other key people as part of a global Skype and media support team. We now have increased that team to include not only production folks, and they're helping do the Skype here today, but also engineering, and so we can work alongside our partners, not only from a production and understanding the art as well as the science of putting a show together, but also understand from Dan and our other partners where there may still be deltas in our product, and then work to engineer solutions for that. And I'd say that now, in-house, the team, roughly 20 individuals. We have about 20 freelancers as well, all around the world, that are trained up in Skype TX to help with our partners who may need to use this technology.
Any other questions that people might want to ask? Yep, at the back there.
Hi there, yeah, Jason Mills from ITV News. A couple of questions, really. That sort of 25-minute you were talking about, Dan, about setup, slightly scares me from a live broadcasting perspective. I suppose it's a question for Skype, really. Is there any indication that that will come down substantially? Because if you're doing call to actions, you know, you need to have that critic. And there's a very quick supplementary question to anyone, really. If you're doing a deep engagement with a few people, does it create problems for the 99% who aren't engaging, the audience you're trying to reach, or is it no different from any other game show or whatever, where there's a few playing, but the mass audience just watching?
So to pick on the 25-minute thing, it's a bit less than that at the moment. So it started out about 25 minutes when we did series 1, and we've done 4 series now. It's a bit of an anomaly, though, around the sort of show, because the bit that you see on screen with that contributor is only the tip of the iceberg of our then relationship with that contributor, because we're giving them a health diagnosis effectively, and then we need to take them through that whole process. And yes, actually it's a massive cost thing for us as well, but it's a real compliance and contributor safety sort of thing. But actually now we feed that back into the show, and it creates more editorial for us because we then see them fixed at the end. But there's part of it is that sort of contributor care side of things, and a bit of soft psych testing for them. You know, it's a big thing to come and show an intimate part of your body to 2 million people over Skype. They've got to realise they're going to go into work the next day, etc., etc. But some of it is the tech side of it, and actually that can be done really, really quickly. And then we just run them in parallel. Can we get a better version of Skype? Can we make sure no one else in their house is using, is uploading a movie or whatever it might be.
Yeah, following the best practices that we can share with everybody here, you can probably see whether or not someone's going to be making the jump to HD within 1 to 2 minutes. And if you have the tools and the best practices that we'll be glad to share with you, then you can say, okay, well, chances are it is the internet access, because I'm seeing 30% packet loss from your side, or we were at 1.2 megabits per second and it just went down to 300 kilobits. Is somebody playing an Xbox at your house? These are things that are quick and easy to identify and rectify.
And just on the second part of your question, the way we approach embarrassing bodies is that person that comes on is probably representative of a lot of people that are watching, but actually the ecosystem of content across different platforms that we have around that is enormous. So there's one person on the show, there's a lot of information and hand-holding and community support and stuff that all the other people watching the show that then think, fuck, that looks like something I've got.
Similarly, actually, on X Factor, it's the same. I think because we engage with fans, the appeal that is really appealing to think you might be able to get onto the show, and you might be the one that speaks to Sharon, and you might be the one that gets to ask your question to Simon, and that's really appealing. So even though you're only engaging, you're only showing a couple of people, I think the wider engagement is huge.
Anyone else got a question they want to ask? Anyone else? No one else? That's fine. How many people in the room are sort of using Skype for the production process in any way? Is anyone using it for casting or for sizzles? It'd be useful, interesting to hear anyone who's kind of got good and bad experiences. This gentleman.
I make a live YouTube entertainment show called The Fox Problem, and we use Skype editorially on a feature called Skype Heads. So we'd interview people from all over the world, and they would appear on Skype, and then we'd dress our studio researcher up like that person. So, for example, we interviewed Commander Hadfield, the astronaut. So we had a researcher dressed as an astronaut with a Skype head attached to her face, sort of on a helmet. And then the astronaut walked around the studio and interacted with people in the audience. So it made sort of quite a nice studio editorial moment, as well as the fact that he was in Vegas and we were in London. So got a good interview going with him. And actually, we also had group chats going on. So Richard Branson was in Necker Island at that time and joined the conversation to sort of talk about space.
Brilliant.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, very quickly. We're going to have to wrap
one of the experiences we've had is how many studios have really shit connectivity in them, and doing that from a pub. Just how you found it with getting good enough.
We had a 4G backpack that enabled the internet because we couldn't get decent broadband.
So I think it's just one really big thing to think about when you're looking for studios to do something like this. A lot of places don't have it.
We're going to have to sort of come to an end shortly. There's a website that Skype run called skypeandmedia.com, which is a sort of repository of lots of the stuff that we've discussed today. It'll have some assets around how you can use Skype and some advice from Matthew over there about the best way to get the best out of your Skype. The other thing I think which is important to say is that I think Skype are interested in looking at new ideas and providing incentives for producers to help shape some of those ideas. And I think if any of you want to get in touch with interesting formats, new ideas, new segments. The stuff that you've seen here, I think the folks at Skype are very keen to hear from you because they can't talk to every producer while they're here. So if we put that up there, you'll be able to get a response, and we will ensure that someone gets back to you. So if you have an interesting idea, please do pitch it. I'm conscious our time has run out and everyone wants to have lunch. So I want to thank our entire panel and our remote guests for joining us, and I hope you found that an informative and useful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks.